So the way this project came about is that originally I was talking with somebody who had a location that was located in another country that she had access to and wanted to develop a story. And so I pitched her a couple of ideas, and one of them ended up being basically two girls that met while traveling at a hostel, and then they go to this place. And I've always wanted to play with like, you think it's a ghost story, but it's actually a vampire that's been among them invisible. That's always kind of been like a story seed idea that I had. So I pitched this to her, and ultimately it didn't end up working out with her schedule. She wasn't able to commit to producing, and I was a little gutted, I'm not gonna lie, because I really liked the story. But then I said to myself, you know what? I want this movie to exist. I want this story to happen. So I thought to myself, in my own travels, where have I gone that is, the cost of living is really cheap and also gorgeous, because this is a story about travel. And in 2019, I went to Croatia, I went to Split, and I went to Zagreb, and I was shocked at, quite frankly, how cheap things were. Like, I went to an opera for 14 USD. We stayed in an incredible Airbnb for like $35 a night, and we had the entire place to ourselves. And so because I'm funding this all myself, I was like, where can I go that is gorgeous, but I can also afford? Because if it's about this place that they're going to, it's about this chalet, this haunted house, let me find an Airbnb that's big enough for my crew to stay at and also that we can shoot in. And then my amazing producer, Sam, said, my cousin lives in Serbia and her girlfriend is a second AD in the film industry there. I was like, what? Okay, can you get me in contact with her? And I started talking to her about the girlfriend of the cousin over Instagram, about maybe filming in Croatia. And she said, I'm biased, but there's a lot of really great film crew here in Serbia. We love Americans, and it's actually even cheaper than Croatia. That's kind of how this whole thing started, and I looked into the folklore. What's funny is that the only word in English to come from Serbian is actually vampire. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's from Romania, they think it's from Transylvania, but no, the first vampire is from Serbia. However, once I started learning about this shape-shifting wind demon called the Allah, once I started reading about how there was a story in Serbia that is almost identical to a story from Russia, except in Serbia it's the Allah, and then in Russia it's the Baba Yaga, there was no way I could go back to it being a vampire. There was just so much richness and odd and specificity. I think when it comes to making folklore-inspired horror, specificity that comes from the research ends up just creating magic. So that's kind of how Serbia came about, and the more that I've learned about it, the more excited I am. It's a really beautiful place and a really underrated part of the world.